Are you thinking of moving to Dallas, Texas? Well, do not make these mistakes. I want to share with you the top 10 mistakes that people make when they move out to Dallas, Texas. And because of these mistakes, they regret moving out to Dallas, Texas, and they have a very difficult time living out here. And make sure to stick to the very end because the last 2 bonus tips are going to be definitely helpful for you. So let's get right to it. So the very first mistake I want to share with you is choosing the wrong suburb. Do not make this mistake because the last thing you want to do is you want to move out here and then regret living in that suburb, regret just the whole city of Dallas. I had a client one time who wasn't my client in the very beginning, but they moved out here without any knowledge really. They kind of researched on their own and then they chose a suburb that was suitable for them. And then they lived here for about 6 months to a year down the line, and they just did not like Dallas. After about a year later, finding out about how I could help them, they contacted me and said, "Hey, Daniel, we just don't like the suburb that we're living in. We don't even like Dallas." And I said, "Well, it's probably because you chose the wrong neighborhood, a neighborhood that doesn't suit your criteria." And so their commute to work was long. Everything was just really far for them. And so they just did not like Dallas, and they had to eventually sell their property and then move to another location and buy a different house. And by doing this is going to cause a lot of headache. That's why I'm talking about you got to choose the right suburb from the get-go. From the very beginning, you got to make sure that you choose a suburb that fits your criteria. I can say, you know what? This suburb is great. For example, Plano or Frisco. I can say all these suburbs are great, but it all boils down to what suburb meets your criteria. Because for some people, Plano is going to be great. But for some people, Plano is not going to be a great city. For other people, Frisco is going to be great. For other people, it's not. So it just really depends on your criteria, what your needs and your wants as well. For example, let's say you work in downtown Dallas and you want to live in Prosper. That's going to be a really long drive. For some people, it's okay. But for some people who hate driving, that is not a good suburb for them to live in. And so that's kind of the pros and cons of each criteria that you have. That's going to determine what suburb is good for you. And that is why you can contact, email, call, text, whatever. You can contact us anytime and we will definitely help you find a great suburb that fits your needs and your wants. Now, of course, if you're wanting to live in the city, that's going to be a different story because the city of Dallas, then you can live in the city, but even within the city, you're going to find the right neighborhood that fits your criteria again. So that's kind of the very first thing. You got to choose the right suburb or the right city or the right neighborhood, that is, to be able to really like Dallas. The next mistake you're going to want to avoid is to assume everything is close by. Some people, they move out here thinking that, oh, you know what? Yeah, it's not going to be too far of a drive. Oh, 45 minutes, not too bad. But really here in Dallas, the land is very, very big. And because the land is big, you're going to never want to assume that everything is going to be close by. It's not like LA. It's not like New York. It's not like downtown Chicago where everything is kind of close by next to each other. When my wife and I, we lived in Uptown, we thought, hey, you know what? It's close to downtown, so it's not going to be too bad, until we actually lived in Uptown. And let me tell you, when we lived in Uptown, there was so much traffic, so much congestion getting into our place, coming out of our place. It was just terrible. And we thought living in Uptown would be like very convenient because it's very close to downtown, but really not so. So I'm sharing this from experience. I've experienced living in the city. I've experienced living in different suburbs. And so I know that everything really is not close by. We can call it downtown Dallas, but it's not really like downtown Chicago or downtown New York or downtown San Francisco. So just have to keep that in mind, that when you choose the right suburb, avoid the mistake of choosing the wrong suburb, choose the right suburb, and then know how far things are. How far is your commute to work? How far is your commute to a lot of places that you want to hang out and meet people? How far are the hangout spots from where you're going to be living in? So you got to realize that is very important, that you choose the right suburb, that you don't assume everything is close by so that you don't commute, and then you're not going to regret moving here to Dallas, Texas. Third mistake you're going to want to avoid is delaying the car registration and the license transfer. If you're moving from out of state, this is very important because as of today, if I'm correct, you have about 30 days to do the transfer, the car registration and license transfer. I'm not exactly sure of the number of days, but I think it's about 30 days. So this is very important because you're not going to want to pay those late fees, those late penalties because you did everything late. Because I understand, I get it. Moving to a new completely state is a lot of work. You got to take care of all the moving, the truck rentals and all that, and moving into your house, unpacking, unloading everything. And it is hectic getting your kids registered to school. It is not easy, but it is easy to forget about this car registration and the license transfer. Not when I moved here, but when I bought a new car, I thought, no, not a big deal. And I delayed this car registration and license transfer. I don't remember which one I delayed, but maybe I delayed both. But all I remember was I had to pay a penalty. I had to pay a fee. And I was like, man, can you waive it? And they're like, nope, cannot waive fees whatsoever. They don't show any grace, any mercy. So it's just straightforward. You got to pay it or not. And so that's why I, from experience, had that, and it just does not feel good because I had to pay for all these other car registration fees and everything. And then I pay for the late fees on top of that. Man, that just took a lot of money out of my pocket. So do not delay the car registration or the license transfer fee. The next mistake a lot of people make is to ignore property taxes. Now, back then, a lot of people made this mistake, but more and more people are understanding that Texas property taxes are rather high in percentage in comparison to other states. So here in Texas, what I usually say is above 2%. That's what I usually say, but realistically, it may not be over 2%, at least for my property, our house. When I get my property tax bill, ours comes out to be like, I think about 1.25% to 1.5%, believe it or not. So that's not as bad as we say it to be, but you obviously want to make sure to include this in your mortgage payment. When you calculate it, know how much you're really paying, because at the end of the day, if you miscalculate or you just do it incorrectly, you're gonna be like, oh my goodness, I have to pay like $500 extra a month or $700, just really depends on how much your property cost. So this is why it's very important to calculate it correctly. I'm a realtor as well as a loan officer, so I understand both sides. I understand the real estate market, but I also understand the loan process from A to Z, how everything works. So if you have any questions about that and you want to work with us, whether it's real estate and or a loan officer side, feel free to contact us, call, text, email us, whatever you prefer. We're happy to help you move to Dallas, Texas. The next mistake a lot of people make is underestimating the traffic out here. Now, don't get me wrong, it's not as bad as LA. I've lived in LA, and oh my goodness, that 405 freeway, you just never want to go there. It's going to test your patience, and you almost everyone I think is going to be impatient and is going to go crazy from that 405 freeway. So I've lived in LA and I know what it's like. Traffic is a mess in LA. So it's nothing like that, but at the same time, here in Dallas, you are going to see quite a bit of traffic. Don't think that because the land is so big, there's not going to be traffic. Now, one of the things that in Dallas, the people who built the roads, the freeways, all the highways and all that, I'm going to be honest, they did not build it very well. It's like a mess. And it's like when you want to transfer to another freeway or you want to exit, it's just terrible. The roads are not good. You also have like just not so good roads. So that's kind of where it causes more traffic. We got those peak hours of rush hour, and then we also have, like, because of the terrible building of the roads, we have more traffic on top of that. So, and accidents as well. So just be mindful of that when you come out here. Now, when you choose the right suburb, make sure to check your commute. Make sure to check it during that rush hour time to make sure that you are driving a certain amount of minutes that you know before moving out there. So just be mindful of when you move out here, there is going to be some traffic, not like way too much traffic depending on where you live, but it could be. But for the most part, it's not too bad, but you don't want to underestimate it. The next mistake people make is not preparing for the weather. Now, the weather out here is brutal. Summer, it's just really hot, over 100 degrees. And during the winter, we got some snow, we got snowstorms. So really, it's going to be all 4 seasons. And during the spring, during the fall, it's really good weather, but some people have allergies during those seasons. So you just got to be prepared for that. Now, how can we prepare for that? First thing is, when we go find a house for you, you look at the HVAC, you look at the insulation. That's going to definitely help you save a lot of pricing in terms of cost, in terms of utilities. And the next thing is just, I guess, your heart, your mind, being prepared, being ready, being mentally ready for these 4 seasons. Because if you're not, and you come out here like, oh my goodness, why is the weather here so bad? I'm telling you, it's gonna be hot. I'm telling you, it's gonna be cold, and there's gonna be snow. I'm telling you, there's gonna be tornadoes. There's gonna be snowstorms. There's not going to be earthquakes really, but there's going to be some natural disasters that happen out here. There's going to be hail. So just be prepared for that. I don't want you to move out here and be like, oh my goodness, I thought it was going to be the perfect weather. No, it's not. Of course, we all know Dallas is not the perfect weather. It's not like a beach weather. So I'm sure you're aware of this, but just be ready for this. Be like over prepared for this, so that when you come out here and be like, oh, it's not as bad. Now, people who live in like really cold, who are coming from really cold cities like Chicago or Michigan, wherever it is, you're coming from those really cold cities. For you, this weather is really, the winter weather is really nothing. So that's for some people, but for people who are coming from really nice weather cities, just be mindful of this. The next mistake is ignoring HOA fees. Now, a lot of these homes in Dallas have HOA fees. If they don't have HOA fees, then that's a great thing. But that street, the houses nearby in that area without HOA aren't going to be as clean in terms of the backyard, etc. So houses with HOA, the reason why they're clean is because HOA, the company, the management is going to give you a warning saying you gotta mow your lawn, or they're going to then ticket you. They're going to give you a fee, a late or a penalty for that. And so you're going to pay these fees, these fines. So this is why houses with HOAs they look a lot more nice in terms of like that whole area, that whole neighborhood, the streets. So most of these houses in Dallas have HOAs, but you want to also be mindful of the price of the HOA. Some of these houses have a lot high HOA, and when you have high HOAs, you're going to have to regret it. Let's say, for example, you have an HOA of $200 a month, then you multiply that by 12 months, you get $2,400 a year, which isn't too bad. But of course, you live there for 10 years, that's going to be $20,000. So it's not like terrible, but it can obviously stack up every month. You're like, man, I'm throwing away $200 HOA. So depending on what that HOA covers, if it covers, let's say, the internet service provider, if it covers the mowing of your lawn, if it covers all these services, then great, it might be worth it. But at the end of the day, if it doesn't cover it, then you might be very careful of whether you really want that property or not, because you also have to think about the resale value later on. You might have a HOA of $300 a month, and when you try to sell that, that's going to be a bit more difficult. That's probably why you had it easier purchasing the house, because the HOA fee was higher. Not a lot of people want homes with high HOA fees. So just be mindful of the HOA fees out here in Dallas, Texas. The next mistake is to move out here without a job. You don't want to do that. I understand that the job opportunity, the job market here is plentiful. There are a lot of opportunities. That's why a lot of people are moving to Dallas, Texas. Not just people who are relocating because of their company is relocating. That's the number one reason why people are moving here. But another reason why people are moving out here is because they want to start a business. And I get it. When a city is growing, that is great opportunity for businesses. So if you're self-employed and you want to start up your own business, that's a different story. But if you are usually working as a W-2 employee, then you also want to be careful not to just move out here and try to find a job, but try to find a job first and then move out here. I had a client one time, he was moving out here to Dallas, Texas. He already told his company he's moving out here, and then he said, I'm going to find a job. And he came out here without a job, and he took about a few months to find a job that he really liked. And he was just kind of like having a hard time the first few months financially, because it was just so difficult without a job, without financial stability. And so that is why you want to make sure you get a job if you can. Now, if you can't, that's a different story, but try to find a job before moving out here. The next mistake people make is underestimating the utility costs. Utility costs are not low here in Dallas. Well, let's put it this way. I don't really know how much utilities cost in other states, but I do know here in Dallas it's not that cheap, at least from my experience. Now, when I pay my utility bills, I pay over $100 for the water, for electricity and gas, trash and all that, combined sewer. It's over $200 a month. So utility bills aren't going to be low. The reason I say this is because during the summer, it's hot. So you're gonna keep your AC on, right? Hopefully, right? When it's scorching 90s and 100s, you're gonna wanna keep the AC on. If it is, let's say during the winter, it's gonna be really cold and you wanna keep your heater on. And so you're gonna be running your HVAC system constantly, again and again throughout the year, over and over. Not for like the whole year, but I'd say like just to guess 8 months or so. And then during the summer, you gotta make sure to turn on your, if you have a sprinkler, if you have a lawn in the front, you gotta make sure you turn on your sprinkler system because you don't wanna have any foundation issues. And so what's gonna happen is because of these seasons that are either really hot or really cold, your utility bills are gonna go up really high. So be mindful of that. So at least for us, we're paying like a couple $100, I'd say like $400 or so for water, electricity, gas, trash, sewer, and then we have our internet service. We don't have cable TV because we don't let our daughter watch any TV whatsoever, and so we don't watch TV. And then we pay for our internet, which is like $50 a month or so, and then we pay for our phone bills, of course. And then what else do we pay for? I think that's about it, right? In terms of utilities. Maybe there's another thing, but I just can't think of it off the top of my head. But those are the utility bills that are going to be a bit higher. So just think about that. When you buy a house, your insulation is going to make a difference. Your HVAC, if it's working properly, if it's maybe like having some leaks, then it's going to cause the utility bills to be even higher. The next mistake is to believe that the cost of living in Dallas is super low. Now, this is not true. It's not super low. It was like many years ago, very low, but it's not today because so many people have moved out here. But here's the thing, it is much cheaper, a lot lower than other major cities like LA, New York, Chicago. This is why a lot of people are still moving out to Dallas, Texas. But it's not like gonna be very, very low because house prices have gone up recently and we're talking like $400,000, $500,000, $600,000 or so. So your monthly payment, your mortgage payment will be at least $2,500, $3,000 or so, depending on how much of a loan amount you get, your interest rate, and all that other details, right? So it's not gonna be like super low, but the good thing about Dallas, Texas is it is affordable and you can buy a house and you no longer have to rent if you qualify for a loan and you can get yourself a house. So this is the reason why so many people are moving to Dallas, Texas, because they don't want to rent anymore in, let's say, California or Chicago, New York or Seattle. They're tired of giving money to the landlord and the landlord becoming rich off of their rent money. They're just tired of it. Tenants want to become homeowners. That is why people are moving out to Dallas, Texas. And so Dallas, Texas isn't super low, but it is very affordable. Now, when I say affordable, if we're talking about like downtown Dallas, that might be a different story because it may not be as affordable for some people, but at least in the suburbs, for the most part, a lot of people find it very affordable. The very first bonus tip I want to share is you do not want to skip your home inspection. This is where a lot of people, they make this mistake. When do they make this mistake? They make it during a multiple offer situation. They make it when it's a seller's market. The market is crazy. All these buyers are moving here to Dallas, Texas, and they're just desperate to find a home. And what happens is they skip the home inspection. When you're under contract, that is. You don't want to do this. Never, ever do this. I had a client one time, we were in a multiple offer situation and he wanted to skip the home inspection to try to get that house, to purchase the house. Now, I said, you don't want to do that. Let's adjust the other terms, because when we put in an offer during multiple offer situation, there are certain ways to kind of tweak things to make your offer really good. And this is what I really love to do. Make our offer look really good so that we get that house during a multiple offer situation. So we tweaked other terms, and during that home inspection, I said, do not skip it. Instead, let's do other things. And that's what we did. We got under contract and we did that home inspection, and the home inspection had issues that we were not aware of, that we couldn't see with our visible eyes. Now, when I go out with my clients, I have a foundation equipment where I'm not a professional inspector. I'm not a licensed inspector. I am a licensed real estate agent as well as a licensed loan officer. I'm not a licensed inspector, but I still have a foundation equipment to go with my clients, to take it with my clients. And if my clients want me to check out the foundation, see what it's like, I can say, this looks like it may have potential foundation issues. Or I say, this doesn't look like it may have. I don't say it has or it doesn't have, because again, I'm not a professional licensed inspector, but I do let them know it possibly could have, or chances are not that high, but we still do the inspection. And so I take that equipment with me all the time, and that's kind of the good thing that's kind of the thing that my clients really love about working with us, is because we have that equipment. And then we go under contract, and then we have the actual professional inspection done. And during this inspection for my client, what we did was, I did the foundation, everything was fine. But what happened was the HVAC had leaks that I couldn't see with my own eyes because I'm not a licensed inspector. And then also there was that HVAC issue, and there was also like these plumbing issues that we didn't know of. And so there were these two issues that were pretty major, not minor, pretty big issues. And my client was like, oh my goodness, I don't know what to do. I love the house. And I said, I know you love the house, but you got to think logically. At the end of the day, he decided to terminate the contract, and he found another house, thankfully, and he loves that house he's living in right now. And the previous house, if we had just skipped the home inspection to get that property, he would have been in trouble by tens of thousands of dollars trying to fix the HVAC system as well as the plumbing issue. So this is very important. Never skip the home inspection. And the next bonus tip I want to share has to do with, people think that everywhere in Dallas is affordable, and that is not the case. I talked about, do not assume that everything is cheap in Dallas. But everywhere in Dallas, it is not affordable. I'm sorry, it just isn't. There are certain parts in downtown Dallas and in the city of Dallas that are very, very expensive. And people think, oh, you know what, I can move anywhere to Dallas, but that is not the case. And even when it comes with suburbs, people think, oh, I can move to any suburb I want, but really that is not the case, because everybody has their certain loan amount that they can qualify for. They also have their criteria, their needs and their wants. And so when you want, let's say, a very new home, like a home that's like 5 or 10 years old or so, and you want like this really big house, and you're looking in the city of Plano, I'm sorry, at like a $500,000 budget, I'm sorry, you're not going to be able to find that kind of property. It's going to cost a lot more. So this is where everywhere in Dallas is not affordable. How do you understand this? You got to be realistic. You can't be idealistic, but you got to be real with the numbers. I had a client one time where they said, I want to buy a property of $400,000. And that's kind of like a house where you can purchase, but they couldn't qualify for $400,000. They qualified for only $250,000. And they then told me, Daniel, we are now realistic. We're no longer idealistic about the house we want. Reality hit us, and now we know what kind of house that we can really get. So this is where you have to realize that everywhere in Dallas is not affordable. Just because everybody is moving to Dallas doesn't mean that you can go anywhere to Dallas you want. And this is why you can contact us anytime you want. As a realtor and a loan officer, I understand all the numbers, I understand the market. So feel free to contact us, call, text, email us, whatever you prefer, and we're definitely happy to help you move to Dallas, Texas. If you like this video, click that like button. If you haven't done so, make sure to subscribe below. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.